The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Joe Vitale, the spiritual healer, author, international speaker, and musician. You are best known as one of the world's leading personal growth experts, spending a large part of your career helping people achieve their goals by teaching them to overcome their limiting beliefs and empowering them to create positive change. You were one of the central stars in the hugely successful film The Secret, which is credited with transforming the lives of millions of people around the world through the use of the law of attraction. As an author, you've written over 80 best-selling books, including Zero Limits, The Secret to Attracting Money, and Life's Missing Instruction Manual. Your latest book, Your Unlimited Self, 9 Proven Techniques to Clear Your Mind and Attract the Right Results, explores the scientific measures that can help remove the roadblocks that stop us from achieving our goals. You believe that our actions and outlook are driven by our subconscious mind, and when we change our beliefs, everyone is capable of building the life they've always dreamed of. Joe, welcome back to London Real.
Oh, are you kidding me? Third time to be here? I'm giddy. I can't believe it. I'm excited. Wow. Thank you.
I'm excited too, Joe. It's always great to have you here. I'm really feeling this vibe. I got a lot to talk to you about as well, including some recent experiences for me. So look, I'd love to jump into it and cover all the great stuff that you talk about and the new book. You know, a bunch of people texted me today and said, oh, is that the guy from The Secret? Is that guy from The Secret? And I'm like, yeah. And I'd love it if we could just talk about that, you know, right out the gate, because a lot of people know you from being in this movie that was a huge blockbuster 10, 15 years ago, maybe.
Right.
And, you know, it was something I think the world really hadn't seen. And it put this idea into people's minds that, you know, maybe your power of your thought was stronger than people believed it was. But I remember the last time you were here, you said, Brian, since the movie was so short, they didn't actually understand everything I was saying, because you can't just think of the dream house and have it, or think of the business you want and have it, or think of the relationship. You've got to do more deep work. And I think that's deep work on your subconscious. But tell me, what do people get right about the movie, The Secret? And what do they get wrong about the movie, The Secret?
Well, it's a great place to start. I love the movie. I'd be telling people to watch it whether I was in it or not. It had a profound effect on the planet and still is. It's traveling around the world and awakening people. What it's doing right and what people are getting right is the idea that your thoughts create. That's powerful. Most people don't even know that. Most people lead lives, as Thoreau said, of quiet desperation. And so they're living to their grave as a victim. They don't know that they have power. They don't know that they have choice. They don't know that they can set an intention and actually move in the direction of it, which is the basics of the law of attraction. But the movie didn't completely explain everything, and I always defend it. It's like, it's a freaking movie. It wasn't a graduate course. You know, this wasn't the tutorial on how to create your own reality. It introduced a principle, and that's all it did. So if people got the principle, and most people did, wonderful. The movie succeeded and still is succeeding. But what it didn't go into and what people are missing is the follow through, so to speak. I'm even in the movie saying when you have an idea, you have to take action. I even say it's your job. And a lot of people watch the movie and say, hey, I saw you in it, Joe, but they fogged out when I got to that part. Because a lot of people want magical thinking. They want to sit there, visualize the romance, visualize the car, visualize the house, visualize the bike, the motorcycle, whatever, and have the doorbell ring. And they open it up and there's the love of their life. I don't dismiss that. I do believe in magic and miracles. My shirt says, expect miracles. So my mindset is there, but I'm enough of a take action, entrepreneurial, prolific, productive guy to say, You have to co-create what you want. Visualizing it, intending it, thinking about it is only step one. That's the law of attraction. What do you want? Answer the question. But after that, you have to actually do something. And the example I often give, you mentioned in the introduction, I've written over 80 some books. If I had only sat and visualized being an author and imagined being an author and felt being an author, but never went to the typewriter in the old days or the computer these days, you would not know me as an author. At some point, I had to get off my butt and put it in a chair, turn on the electric typewriter back in the old days, and start pounding the keys. So learning that your mind creates, that's powerful. But you also learn that your body has to have the follow through, and you have to take action to co-create what you want to manifest.
Yeah, that's really well said. It really needs both. And again, I would say probably, Joe, 90% of the world is walking around not even believing that your thoughts can manifest things. I mean, just because everything we're taught from kids, I went to school at MIT, got an engineering degree. Trust me, there was no class that said, if you think this will happen. The whole basis of that institution is the opposite of that, right? Everything is down to physics and particles that are all predetermined. And so a lot of us grew up in this world where, yeah, we kind of default to that victim status or default to everything's not in our control when the thought makes it actually in our control. But then, like you said, then it takes the action, which is the stuff that makes us uncomfortable, that makes us quote unquote fail, whatever that means. And maybe that's why people fog over. Maybe that's the subconscious saying, yeah, it's a great dream, but I'm just going to maybe just sit back a little bit.
Yeah, and hope that it shows up. And again, it might, but you have to really do the inner work to make things happen. You really have to get rid of the invisible blocks, right down to believing that anything is possible. If you don't believe that your thoughts create, you already have fueled a thought of limitation. You've actually proven the concept. Your thought created a limitation. But if you don't go past that to realize that you can create your own reality by thinking differently, most of us are married to our thoughts. When we have a thought, we think that's us. A great breakthrough, and this is going to be an awakening right here if people have never heard it before, is the understanding that you are not your thoughts. You have thoughts. It seems to be part of the organic human experience that they just bubble up into consciousness. But most of us, until we wake up, feel we are our thoughts. And so when the thoughts are depressing, we feel depressed. If the thoughts are downers, we feel down. If the thoughts are discouraging, we feel discouraged. We don't realize that, wait a minute, we're separate from the thought. We can choose to listen to it, or we can select a different thought or wait for another thought and then go in a new direction, which will make taking that action a little easier. There's so many levels to this. I don't even know where to begin to start to help people.
Yeah, there are so many levels, but that one is a great way to start to people. Like you said, you're having depressing thoughts one day. Okay, well, those are just those thoughts. You're the container. You're the bigger thing than that. And if you can just say, okay, I'm just having a day or an hour or a minute where I'm getting some depressive thoughts, just like it's raining in London right now, go figure, but it was sunny yesterday. And it's just something that's happening. It doesn't necessarily define who you are. That's a big start, right away, just to separate yourself from that. And then you said something else, which I think is interesting, Joe, because you said it's not just about the thought, it's actually really, truly believing it. And I know a lot of people probably listening, and I did this in the past, you say an affirmation, I'm going to be a billionaire, I'm going to be happy, but deep down inside, you don't really believe it. And so you might as well just be reading the ingredients on your toothpaste tube at the end of the day. And you go deep on this, don't you?
I love talking about it. Affirmations are one way to program the mind, but we really got to understand how they work. First of all, I remember having lunch with a woman years ago, and she said, I tried affirmations. Affirmations don't work for me. And I listened to her, then I looked at her and said, do you realize what you said was an affirmation? You just affirmed affirmations don't work for me. And as a result, you have the experience that affirmations aren't working, which means you proved that affirmations work. So it gets a little twisted, it's cyclical, but you have to awaken to the reality that what we're telling ourselves are affirmations. When we sit here, maybe somebody's watching, this is my third time with you, but maybe it's the first time for somebody watching, and they say to themselves, none of this stuff works for me, or that guy's just full of it. It's all BS. Those are affirmations. They're repeating their own limitations enough that they believe them. The thing to realize is that you can change the direction. You can change the direction and start saying, like, affirmations do work. I intend to be a billionaire or a millionaire or have hundreds of thousands of dollars show up unexpectedly. When you first say these new affirmations, they won't feel real because they're butting up against the existing affirmations that are already hardwired in your brain. So what we have to remind ourselves is the way I got here is through the affirmations that were stated unconsciously. When I was homeless back in the 70s in Dallas and struggling, my affirmations were negations. It's like, nothing's working out for me. It's me against the world. I felt totally alone. I was angry. And everything I repeated were affirmations of self-destruction. But I didn't know it. I didn't know it because I wasn't in a coaching program. We didn't have a show like this. I was learning the best I could from the public library and reading books. But for the most part, it was a slow process until I realized how I already got to that point, homeless and later in poverty and traveling up the path of awakening, was by paying attention to my thinking. The existing thinking is from the previous affirmations. When we introduce new affirmations, we're going to feel like, oh, I'm just lying to myself. Of course you're lying to yourself. You're starting a new self-creation at this very point in time. As you keep repeating it, you'll get more comfortable with it. It'll rewire your brain, and it'll start to become the new truth. It'll become second nature to you, to the point where you don't think about it anymore, because now you have a new mindset. How did you get it? By creating a new habit. The habit of positive affirmations. Again, when you first start them, they're not going to feel comfortable because you're doing something you haven't done before. And it's butting against the software that's already in your brain.
Yeah, and I know your thoughts on affirmations changed over the years. I know at one point you weren't a fan, but now it sounds like you are. I hate this phrase, but I'm going to say it, the fake it until you make it. But with affirmations, and I started doing mine about 5 years ago, and I really, it took time, but I'm a big believer of them now, is that, you say them in the beginning and you're like, well, how can this possibly work? And then, but then I just made it a habit every single morning. And I started seeing some of them happen, or I started adopting the persona of someone that was those affirmations. And I saw real traction with it. But you kind of changed your mind over time.
I did, and I'm very impressed with the number of people that you interview, how you would remember something that I gave away as a throwaway comment a long time ago. So I'm impressed with you, and thank you. That's an honor that you remembered it. And I'm also flattered. I think affirmations don't go deep enough. I think affirmations are the long approach to self-change. I'm not dismissing them because we got to start someplace. And by the explanation and the dialogue you and I just had here, it may be the breakthrough that somebody's been waiting for. They can finally realize, wait, I don't have to listen to the negative voice in my head. I can create a cheerleader of sorts. That cheerleader now has new affirmations. I'm going to start listening to the cheerleader in my brain. Now you're moving in a whole new direction. I think it's more powerful, and this is going to the next level. It's going a step deeper and ties into a lot of my current books and current research. And that is the idea that you use the affirmations to uncover the limiting blocks that are in the subconscious mind. For example, if somebody is sitting there and they say, well, I really do want to have more money, and Dr. Joe says, if I just start saying I am now attracting more money, I'll move in that direction. That's cool. That is a start. That's using an affirmation. But the next level is to pay attention to the rebuttal statements in your own head. When you say, I am now going to attract being a millionaire, whatever it is for somebody, and their little voice comes up and says, how in the world will that ever happen? That's not going to happen to me. It happens to Brian. It happens to Joe. It happens to the people in The Secret. It doesn't happen to me. All of that chatter needs to be cleared. That chatter is revealing the beliefs of limitation that are deeper than the affirmations. And in fact, when we release and erase those deeper levels of subconscious blocks, now the affirmations can deep dive and lodge. That can lodge because there isn't any interference. So the affirmations, just on the surface level, powerful. But also, I would say, use them to uncover the blocks in the subconscious/unconscious mind. As you find those, then we can start working on clearing them. When you clear them, magic happens at that point because you accelerate your results. The blocks are gone, and the blocks were all inside of you. They're not outside. That's what we all look, but actually it's inside.
Yeah, really love the way you put that. I train martial arts, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is something I've been rolling for about 20 years. And if people don't know, when you start in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, your first few months, you're taught a few of these techniques, submission techniques, and you get a white belt, which just means you're kind of starting. Now, if you train for about 10 years, you'll get a black belt. And, a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after a few months, can actually choke someone unconscious and do some stuff. And so a little bit of learning can get you a long way. And I would say that as an analogy, if you watch the movie The Secret, that alone will probably get you a step change of potentially, 10 times better the way of looking at life. But then again, if you really want to get to the black belt level, you're going to have to say, okay, where's the action? Where's the subconscious? Same with affirmations. I'd say if you're not doing them, starting to do them will, first of all, immediately accelerate you forward. But over time, if you want to get black belt at it, you have to listen to, like you said, the feedback of the chatter and start going deep on why you're really not buying your own affirmations, and do that work subconsciously in order to break through. And so I know we're hitting a bunch of different levels here. Let's talk about doing that subconscious work, because I think that's a lot of what your work is about. How do people start to address the subconscious, Joe?
That's the $1 million question right there, is how do you address the subconscious? And maybe we have to look at why it's important to address it. Most of us are just driven by our conscious mind. We're listening to our thoughts, as we mentioned earlier. Most of us think we are our thoughts. Most of us think our thoughts are the only things that we have in terms of choice. So the thought comes in, we obey the thought, and our life just keeps stuck. We're just cycling through the same old problems. For most people, it's a relationship problem. Another person might have a health problem. Another person a financial problem. Each person seems to specialize in a particular block, and they keep cycling through it. They get a little break, then they have the problem again. They get a little break, they have the problem again. And it isn't until there's a wake up, and maybe it is for some people today, and they look within and go, well, maybe it's me. Maybe there's something in me that's running, a program that's running that is creating and recreating and rerunning the very same problem, especially when it's different for each person. We've each got a different program, so it keeps running there. That's the first level, is to realize there's something deeper. The deeper thing is the subconscious. When I use subconscious and unconscious interchangeably, it is the iceberg below what is seen. It's the iceberg underneath the water. And that is the big database of experiences and programming and memories. And depending on what psychology and philosophy you look at, it can contain everything from past lives, or at least from your downline, your epigenetics lineage right there. It can all be in your subconscious. And we live from our subconscious. We think we're living from our conscious, but we're living from our subconscious. It's causing us to take actions. It's causing us to think in a different way, to believe in a different way. And if we want to do any change, it isn't just on the conscious. We have to go into the subconscious and kind of rewire it, clean it up, cut some wires, so to speak, in the software of the mind. And this is one reason why affirmations aren't my number one favorite thing to do, because we're still working on the conscious mind. We're trying to change the thoughts there. With repeated use and using it the way we've already described, will have an effect in the subconscious mind. We'll start to do the work there. But the really heavy duty work needs to be in the subconscious. And Brian, I'm sorry, this is where I get on a soapbox, because I think this is my contribution to the whole self-help industry. I think there's what I'm calling a missing secret. And the missing secret is that you can intend all you want. You can visualize all you want. You can do every fancy, latest, greatest, trendy, new agey technique and self-help, self-improvement technique that comes out that you want to try. That's great. And they will work as long as you don't have a block in your subconscious. If you can get what you want by saying, this is what I'm affirming, this is what I'm going to take action for, and then you go ahead and you create it, you didn't have a block. You did it. You're done. You can go on to the next thing. But if you're repeatedly saying, I'm affirming more money, or I'm affirming health, or I'm affirming relationship, but damn it, block, 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 it doesn't seem to happen to me. It's probably a block in the subconscious. We have to go there. That's what I think is the missing secret. The self-help world doesn't seem to talk about it enough. I'm sure other people are, but I often feel like a lone voice. I think back to when I was homeless. I was living in the Dallas Public Library. So on one level, it was bliss. I was with books. But on another level, I had no money, no home, no car, no relationship, nothing else. And I remember reading Think and Grow Rich around 1975.